Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 2 of the anime series Shouwa Genroku Rakugo Shinjuu, Descending Stories. And I mean, man, how much time has passed since Yotaro got involved with the Yakumo, formerly Kikuhiko, as we saw in Season 1. I'm almost sure they said in the first episode of this season, it's been about 10 years since he initially became the apprentice of the Yakumo. As we saw in the first episode, finally graduating to Shuichi, to the title of Sukeroku, and people are still drudging up as yet his former involvement with the Yakuza, his former life as a criminal, and they're using it to signal the potential death knell of the entirety of the Rakugo art form. And that's just flabbergasting to me, especially in the sense of the Yakumo himself, who feels like, his involvement in it when he finally ceases to exist, when he passes on, does he feel that the art form of Rakugo will sort of pass away with him, or at least, if not the entirety of the art form, one, sort of long-standing era or chapter of it will cease to exist with the ceasing of his own life, And so it's almost taking out of his hands that responsibility, but it's putting the weight of the world onto Yotaro's shoulders as the now Sukeroku, who people, it seems almost as though they are under the suspicion that, how could he have so quickly risen to this position, if not bearing on some level of his ill-fated past as a former Yakuza and all this kind of stuff. And so he's got the weight of the entire fate of the Rakugo art form on his shoulders already. Then he's also dealing with the dwindling, audiences coming out to see him. No longer are they coming in droves because of this bad press. It kind of goes along the lines of the antithesis of that, old phrase, there's no such thing as bad press. Well, apparently there is, because people are just not coming out to see him as much as they did. And this also puts concern on his shoulders, because how can he successfully continue this as a career, as a vocation, to support Konatsu, who since the last episode, I guess there has been a span of time that has passed where they now have officiated the marriage between them and Konatsu. For her part, she's not, gonna just bend lightly to this. Anytime it seems that Yotaro is getting caught up in this and carried away with it, she gets right up in his face, as we see in this episode. Hold it, man. This is just a practice run to see if we can all survive this framework. Anytime I'm done with it and I want to call it quits, that's it. It stops. That's the thing. And she herself is somewhat put upon by the memories and the mourning as yet still of her father and mother, most notably her father, who it seems, as we find in this episode, there's this sweet scene between she and the Yakumo where she's kind of passed out. She's dealing with 3 kids, effectively. She's a mother of 3. Even though she has only 1 child, she's also dealing with Yotaro running rampant and the Yakumo requesting after her every other day, probably doing the household chores and the laundry and taking care of her kid and all this kind of stuff. So she's exacerbated. She finally passes out for a little while, and her child is going crawling around the Yakumo's pad. He is home because he has asked for some time off during the summer months, since there is such a high demand seemingly for Yotaro as the new Sukeroku. He can afford some time by himself, and he's playing an instrument, and here comes the child crawling in. And so he returns the child to Konatsu, who is not responding when he calls to her. And she is, it's hard to say how deeply asleep she is, because when he comes up beside her, she desperately, clamps onto his arm, and he kind of lays slack next to her and starts to recite a rakugo that her father once did when she was a child to try to put her to sleep. And there's this sweet flashback sequence where we see her as a child holding on to her father much in the same way. And the current Konatsu is crying herself to sleep. She's shedding tears while she is semi-unconscious, imagining this. And she when she finally snaps to, she's incredulous. How could this man I so loathe and hate and want to see die, blame for the deaths of my parents, how could it be him I'm so clinging on to and everything? And you see that he too is put upon. All the characters are put upon, very much stressed out and strained by their, interpersonal relationships with each other. And this is where she says, I would want to see you dead were it not now. There was an excuse before. Now there's a whole new excuse with the life of her child. She wants the child to be able to hear his Rakugo performances. It's not only the mastery the Yakumo has over that art form, but also the hints that still yet exist of her own father's influence as the former Sukeroku in his performance of it. So she very much wants her child to be influenced by that, and so she kind of has to stave off for the time her murderous intent against the Yakumo. And but it is really sweet to see that relationship dynamic between them. I almost wish she would be less tsundere, kind of not in the romantic sense, but in the familial sense, to see that the Yakumo does care about her to a degree, even though there was that falling out, as we saw in the first season, between them, to do with her wanting to have a vocation in the Rakugo art form as well, and, you know, no women allowed, that kind of thing. It's a boys' club as far as the Yakumo is concerned. She has no business being any part of it. And so, yeah, I mean, even though there are such strenuous ties between them, it's really sweet to see, you know, that they can still be close at times, even inadvertently, though it may have been. And with Yotaro, he is approached by this sort of writer-reporter guy. I don't know if this is a reporter of the arts, and I'm not entirely clear on whether or not he was the guy who printed the article talking about Yotaro's former life as a Yakuza and everything like that. But we do see people are debating it on TV and everything as well, and Kanatsu's even, you know, kind of miffed about it at this point too. Aren't they ever going to get tired of it? Aren't they ever going to move beyond it? That kind of thing. But this cat, you know, you can see that Yotaro hates this guy, is scathing toward him, wants no part of his business. And this guy's coming in, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I'm going to be watching your performance. I want to see if you're going to be cracking under the weight. You better deliver the goods, or, you know, you're going to get a sort of poor reprisal of it in, you know, the next article I print and everything, and all that kind of stuff. And it's amazing the hell that Yotaro is going through, and we are seeing a nervous breakdown happening literally on stage after he you know, he's basically sold out from where he's been doing his performances. They're not going to be hiring him on for any more because of all this bad press, so he has to go to a much smaller venue, and the cat before him is just not very good at the Rakugo. You know, he comes off the stage very much bowing with apology, like to say, man, I'm sorry. I completely screwed you over. But then, of course, when Yotaro comes out, he has kind of been given somebody has planted the seed in his mind throughout the course of the episode, I forget who it was, to say you have to find your own Rakugo, you have to find your own voice, your own style, and all this kind of stuff. It kind of harkens back to what we saw in the first episode with the writer Higuchi, who wants to create a newfound sort of 100 years long essence of Rakugo, you know, sort of create it anew, reinvent the wheel. And so, for some reason, Yotaro seems to make this story up as he's going that sort of harkens back to maybe his former life, where they have to get this special kind of kimono or outfit or something, and they're going to go out for a night on the town, and he's got to ask permission from his wife to go because they're going to be hiring women to spend the night with and all this kind of stuff. It's ass backwards. It's kind of like, I don't know what he was thinking. And then, as if to be completely and wholly not reading the audience and uncouth, sort of taboo, he ends up stripping down to the waist and reveals his tattoo that he has all along his back, which I assume hails back to those Yakuza days. And so it's like the entire crowd is turned off by this. The reporter ends up stomping out. He doesn't even stay to see the finished product of this performance. He's completely off-put, and it seems like everyone is shocked by this and awed by it, and it is just an absolute meltdown on Yotaro's part. You know, completely disservicing his branch of where he now sits position-wise in, you know, the hierarchy of the Rakugo, as a Shuichi, as, you know, the Sukeroku and all this kind of stuff. And it's just gobsmacking. It's like facepalm time 1,000 times over. And of course, conveniently, does he run into the Higuchi guy, the writer, once again, in the aftermath of this, who's like, wow, you went afoul there. And air quotes, coincidentally or conveniently, does he seem to, you know, want to buy Yotaro some drinks, and they run into the Yakumo, who his entire party ended up not showing up. He was, you know, I'm not sure exactly whether he was there to perform or whether it was like a dinner party or whatever it is with friends or acquaintances. But whatever happened, you know, they didn't show up. And Yotaro very much feels like he is to blame for his just horrendous performance. Like, somehow through the grapevine, it must have gotten back to those people, and they were like, forget it, we're done. So he's taking the blame for that, for him, you know, on his own shoulders, just adding that much more to the weight that he's already carrying. And I really loved that we're finally seeing in those sequences, Yakumo is patting him on the shoulder and saying, well, you should have thought better of yourself. You should have had more confidence in your performance, and you shouldn't necessarily have disrobed, but you shouldn't feel ashamed of your body and who you are. And this tattoo, that it is relatively pretty, you know, he's being uncharacteristically, if you saw the first episode and you didn't really know the Yakumo, he's being very uncharacteristically compassionate toward Yotaro, and it was just really that much sweeter for it. It warmed my heart to see that. He's trying to appeal to Yotaro and make him stable on this newfound shaky ground that he finds himself standing upon. And so Yotaro is sort of revitalized by the Yakumo's words. Rather than having a drink, he's going to go home and practice. He's going to practice, because now that he doesn't have so much time performing, he can actually dedicate the time to you know, sort of revolving his mentality around how well he performs and doing better, making better of himself. And this is where we get a sort of couple interesting sequences by the end of the episode. Higuchi, this writer, is questioning the Yakumo and seems to know a lot. Like, it's interesting, first of all, that the Yakumo recognizes him, knows who he is, and that they had their previous encounter so many years ago. But this guy is asking about, you know, the former love interest, is asking about Sukeroku, is asking about the past. What exactly has been going on with Konatsu and Yotaro? Is that legit? And all this kind of stuff. Asking really a fishy amount of questions from a very fishy point of view. Like, what is this guy really after? Is he legit in what he's promising to, you know, Yotaro, that he wants to create a new lifespan for Rakugo, a new branching off of what Rakugo has been up to now, reinvent the wheel? Or is there some ulterior motive which is much more devious and conniving, where he's trying to hit at the hearts of these characters? Maybe he's trying to undo the current generation, and he could be part of the people spreading around those rumors, that gossip. He was once a Yakuza. Oh my god, he was a criminal in Yotaro's case. Don't exactly know, but and then of course we follow up in the final scene with Yotaro getting home, and here's Konatsu and her child being dropped off. Someone, some sort of elderly gentleman in the car is seeing her out, and then there's somebody holding an umbrella for her, as though it were like a driver or something, you know, something like that, a servant, as she's going into the Yakumo's place. And, you know, you see Yotaro kind of looking like flabbergasted by that. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, whoa, what is going on here? I mean, I know Konatsu is talking about potentially anytime, you know, she calls it off, the buck stops, and no more marriage, no more support ties between she and Yotaro and everything like that. But what exactly does this have to do with? I really have to wonder, is she actually deciding to seek cutting it off? Is there something more to it, to do with her own past, her parents, the Yakumo? Remains to be seen, and I'm going to be really chomping at the bit to see, as we pick up in episode 3 of the season, what exactly that was all about. And just a fantastic episode. I love this series. I loved the entirety of the first season, covered it episodically because of that love, and always love having the communication back and forth with you guys who are watching it as well. So feel free to comment below with what your thoughts were on episode 2 of Descending Stories, Shouwa Genroku Rakugo Shinjuu, if you've seen it as well, if you enjoyed it as much as I did. Any insights that I might not have mentioned, you know, that you feel compelled to list in the comments below, is always, you know, welcome as well. Just love having that conversation. And so yeah, otherwise that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.